Welcome back. The next hot button topic is Manipur. And the big question on point is how NIA has changed the game in the state. How NIA has sent shivers down the spine of armed cadres of both Maiti and Kuki gangs. That state will not tolerate vigilantism anymore. The Manipur police had admitted that the extortion cases had gone up in the valley. They took swift action. Now let me come to the point and ask my colleagues how the government is taking up this issue. Brijesh, to you.
Well, I think, definitely this has, the arrest of 6 people who were involved in the killing of those 2 Maiti youths has triggered a new hot point. NIA has arrested 2 people. NIA has said that, that the activities which is happening, the fight between the 2 ethnicity which is happening is also being funded and actively involved in in the ethnic clash which is going on in the state. But if you ask me that whether it is pointing towards the end of vigilantism, I don't think that is happening. The police has, the NIA has cracked down, arrested 2 people, gotten a lot of information. There must be series of crackdowns in order, but there's no end of vigilantism as we speak about, because remember, Karthikeya, there are more than 4,000 plus guns which are out in the open, and until unless those guns are got back, or the crackdown on the part of the police is so high that that both sides fear the stick of the law, until unless that happens, I honestly don't see end to vigilantism and the gang as far as Manipur is concerned.
Okay, I am in this debate. I am also going to join by my guest, but before that happens, Brijesh, there is another aspect I would like you to elaborate. Do you think that talking about the word anti-national, NIA has opened up a caveat saying, boss, that everything which is being done, if it somehow creates a space for those who are coming from Bangladesh and Myanmar, you will have it?
Well, I think what has happened is that what was being discussed in hush-hush fashion has come out in the open post the arrest of one individual couple of days back, and the kind of information which has been revealed by the NIA is that there are militant groups which are actively supporting militant groups in the state of Manipur, which is fomenting and fueling the trouble between the 2 ethnicity as we speak. So I think this official statement definitely makes the elephant in the room out in the open, because there have been talks about it, but they were also always counter-jibe that that this is a figment of somebody's imagination, or the rot could not be that big and all. But I think post what the NIA has revealed, a lot has changed in the last 72 hours, if I may say.
I am also joined by Dr. Tombing, Assistant Professor, National Law University. Thank you very much. Dr. Tombing, do you believe that the NIA, the way it has acted, picked up people from both communities, has sent a very strong message that Manipur as a state will not be allowed to be used by anti-national actors, and protest is one thing, inter-ethnic issues are one thing, but the armed gangs which had taken over the law and order machinery, that will not be allowed. That messaging which NIA has done is changing the game.
I don't know whether they have changed the game, but then it is maybe picking up a small fish in the pond and letting go the larger fish, maybe. So
can you just elaborate, Dr. Tombing, can you just elaborate on that? What is the larger fish and the smaller fish?
See, at the end of the day, one is Mr. Gangte, another one is Mr. Moirang Theme, right? And then when the ethnic clash began, the narratives that were created were very derogatory. First, the narrative was illegal immigrants, then poppy planters, and then narco terrorists. But then if we are narrowing down to only 2 persons, and then if we imagine that these 2 persons would be the principal culprit, I think we are not making any headway. What we now got is maybe that these persons who have been arrested might have some link with some groups who might have vested interest, but then on the larger context, they might be not necessary. The larger, we're not able to maybe create the larger picture with regard to the issues.
Larger picture regards to the issue. But Brijesh, what is the larger picture? Isn't the larger picture law and order?
Well, I think the larger picture is law and order, and I think what is not happening and has not happened for a while now, a long time now, if I may say so, is the fact that there is no concerted crackdown on people who are taking law in their own hand, and they have been allowed to go scot-free for a very long time, despite with so many boots on the ground. That is not happening, and there have been constant talks about how the state government is going to get back the guns, which are playing a vital role as far as arming one ethnicity to the teeth, and how they're not fearing either the army or the Manipur police. I think a crackdown has to be seen to be believed, in the sense that those key operators have to be arrested. So only after that, I think a sense of purpose, or I'd say an understanding, will go down. Go down those vigilante groups and all, which are operating with impunity, that that the state means business, and until unless that happens, I don't see situation changing a lot.
But isn't that true, which Mr. Toming, Brijesh is talking about? State means business, and I think that's what is happening. By going against people who are actively challenging the law and authority of the state, when the state comes down, it sends a clear signal.
Of course, if state would have willed, this ethnic cleansing, or maybe this ethnic violence, or this war, which has happened for 5 months now, should not have festered for 5 months. In fact, I believe that the intelligence agency and all that, they're quite capable, and then if they want to nip the problem in the bud, they could have done it 5 months back.
But why are you using the word ethnic cleansing? I think it's an ethnic conflict.
See, I'm just putting across some concern that has always been played out with regard to this particular issue, because from a Kuki-Zo community context, the narrative is different. From a Meitei community context, the narrative is different. It depends on which...
But sir, Mr. Tomlin, sorry, I'm not trying to stop you, but in the narratives, the reality is the fact. And we as a journalist, we will only talk about facts. Kuki can have a narrative, Meitei can have a narrative, the Naga can have a narrative, but I'm going to stick to the facts. I'm a journalist.
Let's stick to the fact. And one of the fact is the emotion that is attached with it. And I use the word the dominant areas. For example, in a Kuki-Zo community dominated areas, the victim perspective is very different from the Meitei side. And then in the Imphal Valley area, the victim's perspective of the larger Kuki-Zo community is very different. And that perspective changes with the template. It is in that context. Therefore, I use words like war, then ethnic clash, all this. It is the narrative which has been allowed to fester so far, and this has helped nobody, frankly speaking, because if we see the bites of the head of the state, for example, Gangte, the arrest of Gangte is much highlighted, but the other person's arrest is not at all highlighted. But then both the persons, the NIA have nabbed them, and then the NIA provides that there are evidences against them with regard to some kind of sponsoring from across the borders, including Myanmar and Bangladesh.
But Brijesh, when we talk about Manipur, in last 4 months, we have always spoken in context of communities. But for the first time, when NIA and CBI sprung into action, there was a concerted focus on those who have been assisting the armed cadres and are not Indians from outside. Doesn't it clearly show that there is a thinking within the Home Ministry to just go after these people so that Manipur does not become a fertile ground for them?
Well, I think Manipur is a very important state, given the kind of long border, international border it shares with Myanmar and others. And the fact of the matter is that this is one concern which has been highlighted time and again by all the experts and especially by the security officers, that the situation cannot be allowed to fester in that level. There have been talks about how a truckload of weapons and all have made entry into India, and supply of illegal weapons which are going on, and making of homemade weapons. Usually, in the north of India, when we talk of homemade weapons, limited to very usual country-made pistols and all. But the kind of homemade weapons which our reporter saw when he went to cover this conflict were military grade weapons, capable of causing high destruction. So a lot of weaponry was being supplied into the ground, and given the state of porous border and the situation in Myanmar junta, it is a fertile ground. And I think the ministry has done, or the center has done a very wise thing in going after these things, because until unless you contain these things, ethnic conflict, you can still get a handle on. But once these foreign players come into picture and have a bigger say as far as this narration is going on, then it makes the task of controlling all of it all the more difficult.
Okay, I'm also joined by Rajat Sethi, former advisor to Manipur Chief Minister Biren Singh. Rajat, a very warm welcome on the show. Is it correct for me to say that NIA has changed the game in Manipur, Rajat?
Certainly, Kartikeji, this is, directionally going to really bring about significant changes in the ground situation in Manipur. NIA so far had steered away from participating in carrying out operations in a live and a volatile situation. But, with some impunity, we have seen that a lot of valley-based insurgent groups, as well as satellite groups of the Sioux groups on the hill areas, have been roaming freely and extorting common people in the name of fighting this, ethnic conflict. Based on that, there were enough number of inputs which the law and order within the state were receiving continuously, as well as the intelligence bureau had significant details, and they have been building a significant case for all of these months, doing the planning as to how to crack down on these insurgent groups who were having a pretty easy-going time in their respective areas. I think NIA's crackdown is going to do 2-3 things. First of all, it will put clear-cut message out that any insurgent groups who've been part of any banned group or is accused of waging war against India, going against India's sovereignty, will be hunted down, and due justice would be given to them. That is one thing which is established. That is going to deter a lot of insurgent groups who are freely moving and wielding weapons. Third thing, what is going to happen is that all these stray incidents that we are seeing around violence, both in the valley and in the hills, is being motivated by these insurgent groups. That too will be, would be checked if NIA continues these crackdown on these militant groups. I think both the communities should come out actively in support of the NIA operations. I'm hearing that certain spokesperson entities have emerged in the hill areas who are trying to oppose NIA's action. That is rather unfortunate. In fact,
Rajat, can I ask you one thing? This thing has worked well in giving the message. Why wasn't this done little earlier? In the day. This sort of a deployment, or this sort of a narrative changing act when it comes to national security.
So this is a great question, Kartikeji. From an operational standpoint, what I feel is that containing the situation was the primary objective all these months, and this is how operationally the Manipur police was asked to ensure law and order in the valley areas, and Assam Rifles was tasked to ensure that combing operations and basic law and order is maintained in the hill areas. That's how the operational division was done, and it was assumed that over a period of few months, things will completely settle down. But something that did not work in all of these days was what I think the central government did not anticipate was that these insurgent groups in both the hills and the valleys are going to play a spoil sport. They did not account for it, and I think this was the principal reason why we see violence continuing even till date. Mischievously, images have been leaked to ensure that the state continues to burn and India continues to suffer. So there were certain nefarious activities actively being pushed by these insurgent groups in a strategic way. I think NIA got a sense of it that this is not just normal civic unrest. There is a layer on top of the civic unrest, which is largely to do with insurgency groups trying to have a heyday during this conflict.
Or
And
is
I
it,
think
or Rajat, is
they
it
were
because
just
of the
trying to
fact,
hope.
let me be point blank, is it because of the fact, because you have been part of those discussions, that somehow Manipur police and Assam rifles, their differing views on different security situations became very apparent, and people had different narratives on them, different takes on their position, and NIA seems to be like straight from the central, neutral, national interest, going after them, so it's seen differently by people.
It should ideally be seen differently, but I am yet to see that. I mean, NIA's action in the valley was also opposed, by the way. NIA arrested even a valley-based insurgent member, and he was also ferried to Delhi. I think there were attempts even by the Meitei Mira Paibis and all trying to attack the police stations and rescue these 4 or 5 people who were arrested earlier. But once NIA came in, all of these interested parties had to take a back step. I'm still hearing that ITLF on the cookie front is still trying to do a call up band and all of that. My appeal would be that they shouldn't, take a position against NIA. At least that much they should ensure. But if they still want to carry on with the band, again, I think the NIA will identify the miscreants and identify people who are waging war against India and would nab them in due course.
I think
anybody who's against India's interests would be identified and would be taken to task. This is a clear message which has gone in completely in difference with the strategy so far.
Okay.
The strategy so far was containing the violence in the hill and the valley. That to an extent has been achieved, not fully, but to an extent has been achieved. Now this is leg 2 of the campaign. And I think all credit should go to the Home Minister Amit Shah ji, who's having a very keen understanding as to how the operations should in phases be rolled out.
Rajat? Mr. Tombing, do you agree with Rajat? I think Mr. Tombing is not there. Brijesh, do you agree with Rajat?
Well, I think, by and large, yes, I agree with him because, they have been able to contain the situation. But they have not been 100% able to contain the situation, but they have been able to contain the situation. And this particular arrest will definitely send a message. But I think, still a lot has to be done by the state to ensure or send a message of impartiality because, the ethnic divide or the way the state has functioned till now has still not kind of, send an effort that they treat both ethnicity with the kind of fact that they talk about Manipur as one entity, but the treatment has been far from that, and that is also giving further stoking the problem rather than solving it.
Mr. Tombing, I want you to come in. Do you agree with what Rajat Sethi has said? He has worked with the administration. He gives an insight which is very unique.
I agree with him partly. But I would have wished if on the hindsight, that idea of larger, greater interests of the state, etc., I wish it had come much earlier. And now, why I said this, the reason is because when we allowed, or maybe when the clash was allowed to fester for so long, the hatred and then the misgiving and then the distrust has run now too deeply. And this is an injury of trust and also of maybe a loss of confidence in the very idea of state itself. And to rebuild this confidence, it takes more than just arresting 2 persons. I think there may be also in the context of the NIA, like it has been said, that they are impartial. Thankfully for that, they have been impartial. But then there's another concept of state, which according to the Kukizo community, it remains to an extent partition. And those can be, in fact, seen and maybe understood from the kind of declaration and then also of the certain statement that are put out at the state level.
Okay, wonderful. Rajat, in end, what do you expect the Biren Singh government to do? I think there's a change of gear which I'm watching gradually, press conference, the issue of narcotics. A lot of things are taking place simultaneously. Do you think the government is changing gears? What are we supposed to understand from that?
I think one singular agenda before the state government has to repose faith in rule of law. That's something which is of paramount importance. I think all the actions, all the strategies which are being crafted in guidance with the Home Ministry is all in the direction that how to infuse rule of law, strengthen the institutions which have faltered all along this crisis, ensure, while of course the talks are going on, but at least semblance of of superiority or the upper hand of rule of law should be there. What we had been hearing of late is that there were a lot of extortion calls. It was almost like field day with these insurgent groups having impunity while they were doing extortion calls, both in the hills and the valley. Common people were suffering the brunt of it because, in the name of waging this motherland wars on both the side, both the active insurgent groups on both the sides, which had gelled in very well with the civil societies, were the ones who were extorting. And, if the extortion continues, everybody suffers. Common people suffer the most. The businesses, small businesses who've been suffering all this while any which way are now trying to open shops, but these extortion calls come in. Therefore, the fear of rule of law has to be reimposed. And I think all directions right from the top is being directed at that. We will see that, even in the unfortunate murder of two young students, swiftly CBI director was flown into Manipur and swift action was taken because certain credible video-based evidences surfaced. Using that, the culprits were identified and nabbed in no time. Similarly, some such steps of infusing confidence in the common people that the state's edifice still is intact, and no matter what has happened in the past, in the future we will see a very proactive approach of either the state police, paramilitary, or if needed the CBI and the NIA will come down and ensure that justice is delivered.
Okay, that's very brilliantly put, because I think when we tell one part of the story, which is things have gone wrong, I think it's important and imperative to tell the right part of the story or the other part of the story when things are going right. And I think the sort of action which is being taken now, the message which is going out is very, very important, that there's going to be a crackdown against the armed gangs, and the center will send in force like NIA to give a strong message and act on the ground to bring back Manipur to normalcy. I think that's a very strong step from the center, and we hope that more such important steps are taken, that normalcy is resumed or Manipur is brought back to a normal state very soon. It's a very important development, and I think NIA has been a game changer.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं, जो कि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं.
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
होता जाने वाली